This is the sluggo, slant and go.
All right, fellas, episode 74. This was titled It Just Means More, and I think we know why. It's because, as I just put out on Twitter, you would know this
baby
for grabs tonight. Now, last year we just did it for fun and kept 2-1, and that was okay. But this baby, $7.99 from Wunhao, China, good line imitation leather, and I don't even know what the thing's made out of, but it's cheap. But we've really had some good battles with that this week. In the middle, this is the beef sandwich. Casey the Beef Cregan, you're back on the island, my buddy.
Yeah, here the weather is amazing. It was crazy nice in New Jersey for a day, and then went to New Jersey weather. And why am I always talking about weather? But it was really, really nice. It's been really nice since we've been back. I'm cold today, but I think that's just me being a Southerner again.
No doubt. And, whatever else you got going on now. Zach Locks Parker,
Yep.
Savannah, Georgia metropolitan area. I see you have your shirt on that you think is good luck.
I know it's good luck. I know it. The past 2 weeks have been very good. Got me kind of clawed my way back into this race between the two of you, tried to make it interesting. I feel as if my betting influenced your betting. Therefore, I made everybody better, not just myself.
That's a good point. You actually did influence me last week, but as I texted you this afternoon, you're not influencing me this week. I don't have a plan, so you haven't influenced me. You may when we get to that point of the show,
Right.
But right now I don't have a plan, so I don't know. You didn't influence me yet. But you know what? The Clemson Tigers influenced me Saturday night. 30-0 over South Carolina. The Gamecocks, I still think they're looking for like their third first down. I was a little worried, as we talked about during the week. I thought Zach was not crazy for that bet he made on South Carolina. I mean, I couldn't do it, but I didn't think it was crazy. But as I thought more about it, and I heard somebody talk about South Carolina's offense was worse than Clemson's, and I think we saw that on the field. And
Right.
Clemson's defense was better too. So in retrospect, we should have had more confidence, I think. But you never can tell, with the way things have gone this year. So whatever, I'm comfortable not betting on it. But Beef, what is your takeaway from the Clemson South Carolina game last Saturday?
Obviously I'm wearing the sweatshirt, right? So everyone knows my allegiance and our allegiance. But man, oh man, how bad did South Carolina look? I mean, I hate the transitive property guy, but you start thinking about how did that team beat Florida? How did that team beat Auburn? They were just atrocious. Jason Brown just kept trying to throw to Andrew Booth, and Andrew Booth was like, well, I don't want the first one. Let me make sure I have to dive for the second one. The first one was way too nice into the breadbasket, but I really, really liked the game plan by Tony Elliott. I don't know how many people have said that this year. It was just run the ball, and a lot of it wasn't even tricky stuff. A lot of it was right up the middle. I really liked watching the offensive line play. They looked actually competent. There was a lot of zone blocking schemes, which just basically means go get an area, whoever's in your area. And that run by Shipley early on, that first touchdown, kind of took their life out of it. The stadium was crazy. They were going crazy, and that 29-yard run by Shipley was basically all that the Clemson needed. South Carolina did not impress me one bit. I thought they were atrocious, not even good, atrocious. But hats off to Clemson. They played probably their best game. Defensively, they were right there. They were awesome.
Yeah, Shipley's become the new golden boy as far as the highlights go. I can put a video up of him gaining 6 yards and he gets 3,000 views. I mean, it's and then I put Booth's interception up there today. Last time I looked, it was like 234 or something. So he is the new. I could put one up there of Travis Etienne and then get 10,000. So that's kind of the way it goes. The Clemson fans pick out their favorite, and we'll watch anything you put up there. Fetching his helmet off the bench or whatever. So
hello to Kevron Harris. Great to see you. And just wanted to say hello. Always try to say hello to him before we go too deep into it. So
no doubt. Thanks for joining. Thanks for the comments, Kevron. Locks, your takeaways from the Clemson South Carolina game Saturday.
I just start with it's just wonderful to see the University of South Carolina Stadium empty out at the middle of the third quarter every single time. It's fantastic to see the crowd just walking to the exits like that. It was tremendous. They knew they didn't have a shot. I think it was embarrassing for them. It was embarrassing for Shane Bieber.
He said so.
A tiny bit of me felt bad for him. I think he was embarrassed. They had a little confidence coming into the game, like I talked about last week. But I talk about like the ultimate look-ahead game for the Auburn Tigers to lose to them like that, and then for South Carolina just to get totally dominated by Clemson. It was very impressive. It was all around, like I said. I think they put together the best game of the season, and the last game of the season. And it's important to put little brother back in his room when you have to every once in a while. So it was good to see. The running game was fantastic to see both Pace and Shipley both just run the ball the way they did. It was just great to see. But yeah, I mean, the game plan was solid and they executed it finally. It really looked good.
And John Chansey chimes in and says Dakari had a good game. He had a couple of catches. There's only DJ had 99 yards, I think, and 9 completions. And there were a couple of drops, there were a couple of bad throws, but they really, as Casey pointed out to me on the text during the week, they didn't really need a lot because both Shipley and Pace are tough to tackle.
Right.
They don't go down on that first hit very often. Occasionally, if there's zero blocking, which we've seen some of this year, they go down. But man, they don't go down easily. And there were a few national names laughing about Shipley replacing Travis Etienne this year, and he's not the same runner. Obviously, he can't replace him, but he's dang good. He's going to be good for a couple of more years. Just hopefully.
I think one thing that Chansey was talking about too, and I don't know if he is, but I'm just going to put words in his mouth because he's not here talking with us. But Dakari Collins was one of the best blocking wide receivers we saw. He was, I think, the best blocking wide receiver that we saw. I think you put up a video of his block in the end zone. Somebody did, where he just completely pancaked the DB and stayed with his block until, what do they say, the echo of the whistle. He was great, and I caught him more often than not. Absolutely taking his guy out of the play, which again helps the runs.
Yeah,
that was obvious. Well,
that's something we didn't see earlier in the season very much of. Right now, I don't know if it was the opponent, but I mean, South Carolina is a SEC team, but not a very good one. But we haven't seen much wide receiver blocking like we used to see in the days of Sharon Peak and those guys who really, really went after it. Week after week. All right, guys. Saturday started off with Michigan and Ohio State in a fantastic game in the snow. I don't watch very much Big Ten because it's 17-14 or 12-9 or whatever. But this was a fantastic football game, and Michigan took it to them. Zach's favorite boyhood team, Ohio State, got crushed in the state of Michigan. Zach, you're from Ohio. I'm going to let you talk about this game first. Takeaways from Michigan and Ohio State.
Talk about running the football. Holy smokes. Michigan can run the ball. Holy cow. But it was cool. It was kind of cool to see a little football. Like I said, some flurries coming down. The Michigan State game, which wasn't far from there in East Lansing, that was a total whiteout over there. But it was cool. It was a really good matchup. I grew up, like you said, watching that game, whether I liked to or not. That was the only thing on. I kind of liked. I grew up a Notre Dame fan. Not gonna lie, a lot of my family went there, but just having to watch that kind of got old. So, but it was fun to watch. I think the committee got it right. I think Michigan deserves Obviously, I think I would put them above Cincinnati, and number 2, I don't think it's far out of the line just to swap them out with Ohio State. They beat the doors off of them. So it was a fun one to watch, though. I enjoyed it.
It was one of those games where you just kept waiting for Michigan to blow it somehow, and they never did.
Didn't. No, they did not. What a scene after that game, too, when everybody came down the field. That's a huge stadium. It's like 114,000 were in there or something like that. They said it's crazy. Very cool, though.
It was very cool. And before we move on, before we get your comments, Connor Ryan, I think that's a new name. I don't remember seeing that before. Love seeing our O-line improve as the season went on. The last 7 years we've owned the line of scrimmage versus Carolina. And somebody made that comment on a similar comment on Twitter, maybe it was Connor, that he could see the improvement in the offensive line, and I certainly noticed it. You're not going to notice anything against Connecticut, but Wake Forest has a bad defense. South Carolina is not great. We just talked about that, but it's an SEC team. They've got some players, and they played really well. Beef, I don't know if you wanted to comment on the offensive line, the Clemson's O-line, and then move on to Michigan, Ohio State.
Sure. I thought Walker Parks was the best lineman and player on the offensive line on both sides of for both teams. I thought he was the best player on the offensive line. He was just gaping holes and he was just manhandling his assignment from the right guard position. Yeah, you're right. I really believe that they were fantastic and they were noticeable, right? We noticed them when they're not good, and we need to notice them when they were good, and they were good the other night because that was the game plan. The game plan was running. Dabo basically said, we're going to run the football. And so they had to figure something out pretty quick, and they did. They were great. As far as Michigan, Ohio State, I thought Hassan Haskins was dynamic running the football, 170 yards, I believe, a couple touchdowns. He just wouldn't go down. He's not a very big back, excuse me, but he was really good. Cade McNamara really didn't have to do too much. He didn't throw the ball too much at all. And that Michigan defense is really, really good. Yeah. What's his name? Aiden Hutchinson, I think, is defensive end. He'll probably be a top 5 pick, if not the number 1 overall pick. He looked like Joey Bosa back in the day, and Chase Young, but he was that disruptive to Stroud. And we say all that, and C.J. Stroud had 394 yards passing. Of course, he threw the ball nearly 50 times. So they didn't necessarily shut them down, but they did way more than they needed to win. It was a fun game to watch, like you guys said.
Yeah, nice to see it in the snow. And an interesting game. It was kind of fun. Alabama and Auburn. Auburn, hold my beer. Auburn, who had 57 chances, I think, to put the game away. It looked like Clemson earlier in the year, except Clemson pulled some of those games out. Auburn didn't pull this one out. 4 overtimes. We got to the 2-point conversion rule. Locks, this is your area, the SEC. Takeaways from Alabama, Auburn.
I loved it. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I was going crazy. I didn't want it to end. It was great. I mean, it was cool to see. That's a true rivalry. Obviously, we know who the better team is out of those two, and Auburn stepped up big time. The defense, like I said, they lost to South Carolina 1 week before, and their defense stepped up and really shut down a lot of that Alabama game plan. So looked great. Getting to the quarterback, it was great, but you started to see the quarterback, Finley, the new quarterback for Auburn, just slowing down, limping, getting hurt, and you just knew it was just going to come down to the poor kid, and it just didn't have enough gas, unfortunately. But it was awesome, and Alabama, do they deserve to be in the top 4 after all these almost and what ifs? I mean, you got to expect them to lose to Georgia, right? I mean, and that'll just silence all the critics, but they've done it before. If they beat Georgia, I mean, everybody's going to put them in. It's crazy. So they didn't deserve to win that. They really didn't. Auburn really should have won the game, but it was a fun one to watch. I enjoyed it. Yeah,
it was an old school classic game, right? It wasn't a Big 12 42-39 game. It was 10-10 at the end of regulation, and just hung around, and cool. Alabama just hung around and just outcoached them. What did you take away from it, Beef?
Yeah, it was fun. It was a good game, but you, like Locke said, man, you could just tell when Finley was gimpy and not able to move. You just hoped that they tried to will themselves to the finish line in the fourth quarter, but they gave Alabama too much time, just basically 40 seconds. The announcers kept saying it over and over again. Tank Bigsby ran out of bounds on a sweep play and saved Alabama 40 seconds. So you just knew they were going to have a chance. Bryce Young was really good again, especially when they needed him. Will Anderson, the linebacker for them, is wonderful. I think one of the big things that we may talk about in a little bit when we talk about this game in our picks, a little foreshadowing, is Brian Robinson is hurt, the running back for Alabama. So that's a huge, huge piece. And Jameson Williams is out for the first half because he got a targeting penalty on a punt return. So in the second, it was in the second half last week.
That's
so
right.
He's out for the first half this week, and that's a receiver. That's a big time receiver. I thought they were going to lose because they didn't have him. They got other Mechie's great. They got other guys. They don't need necessarily just one, but he gives them another really, really good threat on the outside. So I'm excited about that game coming up this weekend, 4:00. And it stinks. I had to run out to get a Google Chromecast because we were staying at a hotel and we didn't have the ACC network. So I missed the end of it, but I was able to keep up with you guys via the text machine.
Well, the good news is, I don't know if you guys saw this, but the ACC network is now on Comcast. If that helps you guys out any, doesn't help me any, but it helps a lot of
Big
people
news.
out. 2 days after the season ends, they get a network deal. What a clue. John Chanson says Georgia's D-line is going to eat Baja's O-line alive. I didn't know Baja was a nickname. Or
Our
maybe
producer's correcting me, so I guess they're not without Jameson Williams in the first half. I think it was in the.
I think Baja means the J is close to the M.
It is. It's just above it.
On the keyboard. The targeting was in the first half beef. Yeah, I think they saw Nick Saban mouthing to him, it's just a half. It's just a half. So because he was upset, he didn't know apparently what happened.
It was 100% target.
Oh man, that was one of the worst targets I've seen all year.
That was a wide receiver trying to make a tackle, is what that was.
He was a missile. It was bad. He was horizontal for sure.
Clemson had a tight end. Davis Allen had one earlier in the year on a punt. So.
Yeah.
Jesse has fat fingers. Yes, I have that problem. It's called old age. I have that problem too. I sent some text to these two guys, and they're like, "What are you trying to tell us here? This looks like Russian. This looks like Russian." Any other games either one of you want to talk about that I overlooked? I mean, I tried to hit the big ones, but sometimes I fall asleep, if you know what I mean.
You.
I was told all day Saturday how good Oklahoma State's defense was and how anemic Oklahoma's offense was. Not anemic, but they just hadn't really hit their stride. And to see that game go 37-33 was interesting to me, just because when they're trying so hard to put a narrative out there that this team is the best defensive team in the country, or at least in the conference, and maybe they are in the conference, but they still gave up 37 points to a 10-2 team. But
we'll get to that, in the picks, All
right. It was just that was a good game too. It was exciting. It went back and forth, turned it off a couple times because I thought it was over. Came back and Oklahoma had tied it up. Then the muff kick.
Yeah.
It was a back and forth towards the end. It was a little bit of a fun one too.
I was going to say, hold my beer. Oklahoma State dropped a punt, and then Oklahoma said, hold my beer, and dropped a punt at the 8, I think, and things have never been the same for Oklahoma since that guy dropped. Has any program, outside of like somebody dying or the rape accusations or whatever, has any program had a worse, 18 hours? They lost their chance at the playoff, their chance for the conference championship, their playoff bid, their coach, and about 6 recruits last time I saw.
Yeah.
Locks, how's Oklahoma doing? Have they seeded from the nation yet?
Well, we know their coach is not going to LSU. That was for sure. That was the first thing out of his mouth, wasn't it? After the press conference, I'm not going to LSU. I was like, okay. And then, my goodness, it didn't take long, did it? I mean, what do you say? Right move for him? I mean, for him, sure. For Oklahoma, it's terrible. But I mean, you look at the recruiting in the states of California, Texas, Florida. Look at the teams in Florida, Texas, and California this year. They all stink. So because the recruits are leaving, So he's got to get out there. He was already recruiting out there for Oklahoma. He's going to flip all his kids like he's already doing. Expectations are lower. There's probably going to be a lot less fans because it's LA and there's a lot of things to do. They're not near as interested. But I mean, for him as a coach, he kind of hit the glass ceiling. I think it was probably the right move for him. Yeah. A lot of people disagree, but he may go and do just fine out there. It's how's Oklahoma going to plug the hole? We'll see what they're going to put in there, who they're going to get to come and step in. And I hope it's not who we're going to talk about soon, I'm sure.
Well, I have never been a big believer in the coaches are trying to avoid a conference kind of thing. He's staying at Clemson because he's scared of the SEC or he's, whatever. But in this case,
maybe
I think so. I knew he wasn't a fan of it. They said that earlier in the year that there was rumblings that he was not consulted, and he being Lincoln Riley, and was not a fan of it. He played in the Big 12. He coached all in the Big 12. Now then all of a sudden, and it's easy to win, right? Bob Stoops said we got 40 Big 12 trophies in here, and I think before the season when I picked him to win, I think they won 8 out of 9 or something, or some number like that. But I think he was not happy with going to the SEC. And as we talked about last week, I don't know if they're going to rearrange the whole SEC for Texas and Oklahoma. I assumed one would go one side, one the other. Who knows? May put them both on the same side. Yeah. But Lincoln Riley wasn't having none of the SEC. And Casey, I know you know some Oklahoma fans. How's it feel, do you think, this morning or today to be an Oklahoma fan, and you think your program is, an all-time great? They won all these championships in the 50s and whatever, and it's a destination program. And it turns out it was Lincoln Riley, right? He left, and a slew of recruits left. None of them wanted to be a Norman. None of them wanted to be a Sooner. They want to play for Lincoln Riley. At least the big names, Malachi Nelson, the 5-star quarterback, is going to Southern Cal 2 days later. So how's what's his name, Boomer Sooner or whatever? How's he feeling about this whole mess?
They're talking nothing but about the coaching search right now, and so I've been having a field day on Twitter looking at who their sources are claiming are going to take the job. Brent Venables has been in Norman, Oklahoma about 16 different times in 18 different ways. He was going to get announced last night, then at 3:00 this afternoon, then during halftime of the basketball game. Then Big Game Boomer put out there that Dabo will be contacted too. So they're losing their minds a little bit, I think. But it's amazing seeing all these Oklahoma insiders that are saying Shane Beamer, Matt Rule, Fickle if he doesn't get the Cincinnati job. And I look always to J.P. Priester and Larry Williams and those guys that cover the Tigers every day just to see what they're saying or thinking. And the fact that JP is pretty adamant about the fact that Venables hasn't even interviewed yet. Not saying he's not going to be a top candidate, because he is. I mean, he grew up there, right? Not grew up as a kid. I mean, grew up as a coach there. And he is close with Stoops. A lot of Clemson people are also saying that he left on bad terms. That's not necessarily the case. He was demoted, no question. And Mark Stoops came in to be the co-defensive coordinator. I think that rubbed him the wrong way. But I think Stoops and Venables are close. I think Stoops and Dabo are close as well. So this is going to be fun, and it's going to go to the 11th hour, I think. And who knows what Oklahoma people are thinking. They're all over the place. I heard one of those spaces on Twitter. Some guy was literally like, well, yeah, when Dabo comes, then he'll just bring Brent with him.
Okay.
And they're serious. So they're losing their minds.
My favorite was, and I don't know if you've heard this, Casey, or Locks. I alluded to it on the Twitter that I put out for this show. I hope they don't inspect the pictures I put out there like they inspected the picture of Brent Venables. They looked at his watch and said, well, he couldn't be there this time. Right. He was in Oklahoma. Look at his watch. I was like, what are you people talking about? And this is funny because it wasn't Big Game Boomer or somebody from the internet. This was a Tulsa World Herald guy. This was a legitimate member of the media looking at Brent Venables' watch to try and figure out if he's lying about where he's at.
And there's sports editors down there on the TV that are saying that he was there yesterday. He wasn't there yesterday. He was in Kansas yesterday. Is that close to Oklahoma? Yeah, it is actually. But he wasn't there yesterday. And then they went up to Indiana, I think. Where's Toriano Pride from? I think Indiana. And then today he's in Alabama with Bates. And they put out a thing with the picture of Sapp and Sadler, the tight end, and the offensive line picture, and he wasn't in it. So that just brought a pretty big ruse to the internet too. Like, oh, conspicuously out of the picture. It's like, no, stupid. Those are offensive players. You have the offensive line coach there, you have the tight end coach there, and you have the recruiter on record who was Mike Reed, who's the DB coach. So, and then an hour later, here comes a picture of Venables and Todd Bates in Alabama. So it's just funny, man. Like, it stinks when it's your guy and you don't want him to go, but you know, he's got to do what's best for him. He's earned it, right? He's earned the opportunity. So Clemson will be okay. We love him. We would miss him, but they'd be okay.
Yeah. It's the coaching searches are funny. They just get all bent out of shape. The defensive coordinator they were screaming about 7 or 8 years ago, whatever it was. Now with somebody they're tracking his watch and blowing up pictures of his watch to see what time it was. Flight aware. Yes, sir.
That's the key.
I remember all that too. And speaking of coaches changes, Billy Napier to University of Florida. Was it ever worse timing than this? Right. This is like splashed on the news for like 30 seconds, maybe.
Long.
And I got a question. It's going to be hard for him to succeed there, I believe. And I've got some faith in Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly as coaches, but I'm just wondering how successful he's going to be. Billy Napier at Florida, and maybe it's the bad taste from his Clemson time. You know, I know that's years ago, and he's obviously improved as a coach and learned under Saban, and learned under Dabo too. Lars, what do you think Napier's chances of success at Florida is?
I mean, I'd like to give him a chance. I don't know if they will, though. That's the problem. You know, they're like now, because they're seeing everything go on in the SEC West, and they see what's ahead of them in the SEC East. Even you got Tennessee, crawling back up there now. So I don't think he's got a lot of time, and I wish he would, because I think he's a good coach. I think he was, gaining on it, and I just don't know if this was too big of a step, going from where he was to here. Maybe he needed like a intermediate before he got to a monster like Florida, which, again, we're talking about Florida. We're talking about recruiting. If he can go out and recruit and get some players to come to him quickly, they can get in there and succeed, he will have a chance. But, I think he is a good coach. I think he'll land somewhere, but I just don't think this is the final destination for him.
Maybe an intermediate step like Virginia Tech.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah, something like that, or mid-level. Just where the expectations aren't through the roof right now. But hey, all these coaches getting all this money right now. I mean, would you say no? Heck no. It's a Brinks truck backing up to your door.
Heck no, because that money's guaranteed unless he has a pet monkey, or his girlfriend has a pet monkey or whatever. So. Beef, Napier to Florida. What's your feeling there?
I love it, actually, because Clemson fans, as much as he didn't endear himself, I think, at the end, and there's speculative reports of how it ended at Clemson. I think he was pretty much the mastermind of a lot of those starting to build those classes. It was before Taj Boyd, but he was the ace recruiter on the staff. He was the recruiting coordinator, and they were starting to build and a lot of momentum. So I think a lot of kids I think he's a good recruiter. So I think a lot of kids will like that with him. I think he's got relationships from his days at Clemson and probably Alabama too with high schools in Florida. And Florida's right for the pick, and he's got Georgia just to the north. I think it's a good hire because of his personality. He's done it at Louisiana. I really do like the hire for them. I think they're going to be competitive. I'm not saying they're going to win SEC East anytime soon, but I think they're going to be way more competitive for an extended period of time than they were with Mullen.
Nelson says Napier's success will be determined by his ability to recruit at an SEC level. I think that makes perfect sense. What I'm talking about, I guess I'm thinking more. If you look at USC, they got Lincoln Riley. You look at LSU, they got Brian Kelly, and you look at Florida, and you got Billy Napier, and it's kind of hard to put those three in the same sense for me, just for the reason Locke said. He's, Louisiana, Sun Belt. He's dominating the Sun Belt, but it's a whole different ball of wax where he's going. So let's talk about it. Lincoln Riley to Southern California. The deal that shook the college football landscape, made Oklahoma just cratered yesterday or the last 2 or 3 days. I think this is a home run hire, right? I mean, who else could they have hired besides Nick Saban, maybe, that would give them the publicity they've gotten in the last 2 or 3 days? What do you think, Beef?
Yeah, I think that's a home run hire for Southern Cal. No question about it. You got basically one of the top 5 coaches in the country. He's had a couple Heisman Trophy winners. He builds a pedigree. If he can get past this PR nightmare that he's having, where he basically left, he claims that he talked to them at 11 o'clock in the morning, and the next thing he knew, he was the head coach. So he's got to get through some of this little PR where he's seen as a enemy of the people, especially in Oklahoma. But once he does that, and he'll go out west, so he won't be under the microscope of the East Coast people. But I think he's going to be just fine. It also depends on the staff that he can get, and if he can keep some of those kids in state. I look at a Mateo Uyunglele who looks awfully good on film, and you keep him in state, he's going to be probably 1 or 2 in the national recruiting rankings. Keep a couple of these other guys, obviously Malachi Nelson, one of the top quarterbacks in the country, recruiting wise. He could turn that around very quick, but he needs somebody on defense as well. So we're going to monitor his hires. It's going to be fun. But yeah, it's a splash, absolute splash.
Locks?
Yeah, I mean, they killed it. And we've talked about this before in the Chop and Beef show, like these backdoor channels, these meetings that are happening. Like, I'd love to be a fly on the wall. Like, who's talking to who to make these things happen? And it's just like, bam, there it goes. And it happens, it's like, and the coaches are just gone too. It's just like you said, sorry players, I recruited you, but gotta go. Come if you want to. They're out the door and gone. It's crazy how it happens, especially for these big name coaches. It's wild. So, but hey, I don't mind. USC, they haven't been good for
long time.
How long? It's been a long time since the Pac-12 has been relevant. So it'd be kind of cool. Shift the bounce power around a little bit, get them up and coming. But I don't mind it. I think it's probably good for the overall sport.
And speaking of shifting the balance of power, Brian Kelly, who talked to Lincoln Riley apparently, and Lincoln said, "No, I'm not going, not going to LSU." Brian Kelly said, "Great." And I had some audio today that I should have uploaded. It was from 24/7 podcast. I think it was a Cover 3. Bud Elliott had somebody on there, and he said, "Good guys don't win games," meaning Notre Dame. Good players do, mean LSU, and that's why Brian Kelly went to LSU. A little bit more lenient on the recruiting, and able to get some guys into school maybe they couldn't at Notre Dame. And I thought it was intriguing that the AD from Notre Dame, Jack Swarbrick, said, I read today, I don't know what he said it, but I read it today, that Kelly had a Freudian slip or two earlier during the season that he kind of knew something was up. He kind of, I don't know what he didn't say what he said to make him think something, but he said, I kind of had an idea something was up. There's a Freudian slip or two, like, oh man, Louisiana, that's some good food. I'm going down for some gumbo. I don't know what he said. Brian Kelly leaves Notre Dame, the all-time winningest coach in Notre Dame history, more than Newt Rockne, leaves Notre Dame. And I think Palk, friend of the show, Palk, is still in mourning. Locks, SEC, it's your ball of wax, your take.
This has to be the squarest peg going into the roundest hole is my initial thought. Like, Brian Kelly does not fit anywhere in the state of Louisiana to me. It's just the first thing I thought. I was like, he doesn't belong there. I don't know. I understand Lincoln Riley. I don't know if I understand Kelly moving, because he had a chance. He's been to the playoff. Now you're going into not only the SEC, into the SEC West, which also now has the best collection of coaching personalities ever assembled.
Yes.
It's like a team of superheroes. It's between Leach and Kiffin and Saban and now Kelly. Not that he's a great personality or anything, but it's just he's an accomplished coach. I thought it was strange, at best. But like you said, the recruiting is difficult at Notre Dame. Everybody's known that since Lou Holtz basically made it publicized with the Randy Moss situation. He couldn't get him to come, and that led to Holtz getting out of Notre Dame early. If you're looking again at your odds of getting further in the playoff, a 4-team playoff, you stay at Notre Dame. Maybe he knows something we don't know, that it's going to be a 12-team playoff. I don't know. But again, that much money, what is it? $9.5 million a year?
Yeah, I was going to say, let me help you.
Either. Yeah.
Let me help you. $100 million.
Yeah, it's wild. It's so wild. But now Notre Dame has a wide open vacancy, and they're not quick to hire either. So we'll see who they have to pull from. They went through a whole spiel there before they got to Kelly of who they're going to get locked in for a while. So that's going to be a tougher one to lock down, I think, for a new coach for them.
And Beef, I don't mean to steal your thunder. I don't know what you're going to say on the Kelly to LSU, but I mentioned it before. He can get guys. He can recruit. We know that from Notre Dame, and he can get guys at LSU that he can't get at Notre Dame. But one of the things I mentioned when this whole Notre Dame deal, the new playoff before it got pushed back or whatever, delayed, is that Notre Dame would have to win one more game under that scenario. And Pauk blew that off. I guess he assumed that they were going to win that first game, but it's not the first game you worry about. It's the third one when everybody else has only played 2, and you're on game number 16 or whatever of the season. So your thoughts, Beef, on Kelly to LSU?
Yeah, I was very surprised that he took this job. I don't know why, but I did see something on Twitter. I'll keep this short. That from a Notre Dame fan that said, "Look what Brian Kelly did. He united the entire world of college football. Now everyone hates him," and it's so true. They, like anybody else's coach, and Clemson folks do it with Dabo, and I'm guilty. You love your guy, so they've backed Brian Kelly for years and years and years, and then this snake oil salesman comes and gives a 4-minute speech to his players and then bounces to Louisiana. And it brought the whole college football world together because now everyone hates the man. But yeah, we'll see. I think Nelson brought up a great line here. Did Saban fit culturally at LSU? Ultimately, they just want to win. Or sure, I'm not sure they were where they were or at the level, or even if the SEC West was at the level that it is today when Saban was there. Heck, I went to a game when Saban was the head coach at LSU, and I'm old, so
I think culture does matter some places more than others. I think it probably matters a little bit everywhere. But could you imagine? I'm trying to think of another coach. It's hard to picture some hard-ass coach at Clemson. You know what I mean? Some Nick Saban, or it's just hard to picture anybody but Dabo there. We've got Bowden and Dabo, and I mean, it's hard to picture.
He wanted to be a CEO. He wanted to be the CEO and let everybody else work, and it didn't work at the time.
It's really hard to picture some certain coaches at certain schools. But so speaking of which, who do we think winds up at Oklahoma and at Notre Dame? I was thinking Oklahoma today. I have and we talked about this pre-show and we've texted about it. I have a hard time seeing Brent Venables end up there, not because he's not a great coach or whatever. It's mainly because defensive guys don't get many jobs these days. They do get some. Dave Aranda got one, and Virginia Tech just hired a defensive coach. So it's not impossible. There's just, I think, more offensive-minded guys. And to go from Lincoln Riley to a defensive guy, I mean, that changes your whole philosophy of your team, what your team is built for, the ones that are still there at Oklahoma. So that's a hard sell for me. Maybe it'll all work out. It'll be fine. And Venables will be the coach there. I just don't see a defensive coach. I see an offensive coach. And who's the coach at Tennessee right now? Former Oklahoma quarterback. Interesting. Though I hear there's some bridges were burned, et cetera, there. And at Notre Dame, we talked about Marcus Smart. You guys talked about Marcus Smart. Hard sell for me for a guy that's been there 1 year with no head coaching experience to go to Notre Dame. I mean, the pressure will be immense, and maybe he can recruit great. I don't know. I don't see Notre Dame hiring a guy with no head coaching experience. I'm thinking Luke Fickell goes to Notre Dame. I don't know who goes to Oklahoma, but I bet it'd be an offensive guy. Locks, what's your take on these two jobs?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I can't even speculate very much on the Oklahoma vacancy. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. It would have to be another. It would have to be another steal, type of thing. And then we'd end up with another vacancy. I can tell you who's not going to go to Notre Dame, and that would be Lane Kiffin. Talk about square peg round hole. They will not have that man there. And who I think would be great, and because I just think it's hilarious, would be it would be Urban Meyer. I think it'd be hilarious. But I don't know.
Look what Nelson says. It's being reported just now that Marcus Freeman is getting a job.
Yeah,
nailed it.
I think that makes sense if he's head coaching material, and this is what the Freudian slip. I don't know if it was the same thing that you were talking about. That we saw an article. Beef. Remember, Palkson said he said he was going to. Kelly said that he was going to name a successor. It'd be Freeman. So maybe he was trying to put that into motion, put a bug in the ear. So
yeah, and what do I know? Lincoln Riley was never a head coach before Oklahoma, and
that worked out well though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I know. And there was Ryan Day, right?
Sure.
Of course, they were handed. They were handed good teams, just like apparently Marcus Freeman is. Beef, what's your take on these jobs now that you know Marcus Freeman is apparently getting the Notre Dame job?
In my defense, I was going to say Marcus Freeman.
You have already before.
Yes. I think the fans, I think the players, I think everybody wanted it. I think it was going to be hard for Swarbrick if he wanted to keep the recruiting class, which they do have a very good one this year. Right. If they wanted to keep them together to get Freeman, because he was, as Pal calls it, the Freeman factor. He had his hand in a lot of those guys that are coming in next year. And I don't think he was going to take a DC position anywhere else. And so if they brought Fickell in there, who he had worked for last year, I don't think he was going to stay there. I think he maybe jumps to Duke, or maybe he gets another look at Virginia Tech, but they then hired their guy. Maybe he jumps to the top of the list for Oklahoma. I don't know. As far as Oklahoma, I hate to say it, but I think all signs are pointing to Brent Venables, and I hate it. But so because I don't want to be right, I'm going to say Matt Rule or Shane Beamer is the leading candidate there.
Wow. Okay. And I will say this again. You were right. You said Marcus Freeman from the get-go for Notre Dame. I told you you're wrong, and I was wrong, apparently. And not the first
Write it down,
time.
Locks. Write it down.
How about Mark Stoops, Oklahoma?
He just got an extension, so that means
all he's got to do is win 7 games a year.
Well, that's what I was wondering, because Bob Stoops is coming in to, which I think is awesome.
I think Bob should keep the job.
He's actually pretty good on TV, honestly, though, too. So, I mean,
he is, but groom the next guy. And he loves Oklahoma. I mean, heck, I was ready to run through a wall the other day at his press conference.
Maybe that'll be the case. But, I just saw the Mark thing. I didn't realize he got the extension, though. But, I mean, that would be kind of cool. Brothers all, but, that's a dead end in Kentucky. I'm afraid they've peaked, unfortunately, too.
So he's maybe he's pulling a Bill Snyder and going back to Oklahoma.
Him. Yeah, love him.
Yeah, until he goes 8-4, and then they won't love him so much. I'm really surprised at Marcus Freeman just because no experience. But what do I know? I'm not an AD. Can be an A, but not an AD. All right, fellas, it's time. This is what all the people are here for. Don't think you could have done any worse if you tried.
Well, I take that as a victory.
These guys are doing research, so why should I? Beef, you stink the most.
A true believer in what they're doing in North Carolina. That's why I'm picking Virginia Tech, Tennessee.
I love Spencer Rattler.
I agree with Marty.
I don't like this.
Look, you smell it in the back door cover.
Well, I have to say 2 nice things in a row about Beef, and it's really old. Casey is still in first place by $122 over me. Locks has had 2 fantastic weeks, gaining $10,300 bucks in the last 2 weeks, but he's still pulling up the rear. But this is the week, fellas. This is what we're playing for. We're playing for the belt that I've been talking about. And I lost my way here. All right. Beef. First place beef. Beefstradamus, your choice. First, second, or third. What the hell are you doing?
My computer, I didn't have my plug in correctly, so it was going light on me. I'm gonna go last.
Okay, and of course I'm gonna go second. So Locks, bring us up to date with your first pick.
It was fun last week when you went first, so let's do it again.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm here for entertainment purposes only, obviously. All right. So I got this game locked in that I'm really not thrilled about. I'm actually not thrilled about all of them.
You sound like you're at a funeral.
I kind of feel like I am. I have App State favored by 3 in I don't know what conference they're in right now. And they're in their championship, and from what I've read about them is they're on a roll, they're playing well, they're favored, and I couldn't think of another game to pick, so I picked this one. Las Vegas has gotten progressively so much better every week. It's incredible. I mean, I notice I haven't even barely picked any over-unders because they're all either 45 or 70, every single one. all the lines are either 3 or 10, or 2.5, 10.5. I mean, it's incredible. They've dialed it in. And with just less games this week, it's so hard. So App State, favored by 3. Lock me down for 1 cent on this bet.
You beat me to it. I considered betting a cent on a game, but I thought, no, let me take.
You wanted me to pick first.
Let me take this game seriously. Locks did not. App State -3. They're playing Billy Napier's team, so maybe who knows? Are they going to play bad because he's gone? Yeah, maybe you play bad because he's gone, or good because he's gone. Who knows? Right. I don't know. And as you point out, who cares? All right, Casey forces me to go next. Oklahoma State, Baylor in the Big 12. I have 2 of my 3 bets are on this game. I didn't realize that.
No.
What are we? We are so professional. Locks didn't have another game to pick and bets a cent on one, and I'm going Oklahoma State and Baylor. I'm going to go under 46.5, and I'm going to go, okay. I don't want to be like Locks. I'll go 2 cents.
Nickel.
Oklahoma State, Baylor, under 46.5 for 2 cents. All right, Beef.
Let's open this thing up a little bit,
chess
boys,
match.
shall we? Here we go.
It worked, Locks.
Screw your chess match. I'm going off the board here. UGA, Alabama, SEC championship game, over-under that I got it at was 50.5. Every virtualization, whatever they call that thing that I've looked at is 28-21, which my math shows that it's under 50.5, but don't ask me the exact number. That's why we have Nelson here.
That's right.
So I'm going under 50.5 for 1,000 slugger bucks.
Under. No, you didn't know earlier in the week.
I didn't.
Which way you were going to go.
Decided 3 seconds ago.
All right, Beef, UGA, Bama, under 50.5 for 1,000 bucks. Good job, Beef. That's 3 things nice. Dang. You got to stop that. Locks.
It's a holiday season.
Bet number 2, Locks.
All right. So I feel like I'm going 3-0 on all these picks. So mark me down for 1 cent. This next one, I didn't feel good when we started the podcast, but I've been doing my math while you two were babbling on and figured out exactly what I'm betting here. And I feel great about these next 2. I'm not going to lie. So next one's Michigan and Iowa. I have the over 43.5. Now, the vaunted Big Ten, we know they're known for scoring. But if you look back, Michigan can run the football. We know that. Iowa is good for 10 points. That's where I got them at. So, 24 for Michigan, I don't think that's a problem. So I'm going to bet 2 options here. 6,000. Get your pen out, Marty. $6,807.59.
Did you just say the over-under is 43.5?
Correct.
And Iowa's good for 10 points.
Yeah.
And Michigan's good for 24.
34. Whatever.
No, it's official. I'm not the math. I'm not
No, you're right, Beef.
It doesn't matter. They're going over.
They're going over. Beef said, our Lock says over. All right.
If there was logic involved here, I wouldn't be on this podcast.
And you wouldn't be betting $6,807 on Michigan and Iowa.
You can't take them with you. You can't take these Sluggo bucks with you.
Nope. We worked so hard for them.
All right. Bet number 2 for me. I was so close to making this a huge bet, but I heard conflicting information today, and I should never listen to podcasts before we do this podcast, right? Because the information, and one guy is so confident that he goes 2-8 on the week. Who knows? Alabama and Georgia. Georgia is minus 6.5. I took Georgia, and not very confident right now. I don't know. I think Alabama does something to keep it close, or Georgia screws up, or they, something happens to what's his name, the quarterback, Stetson Bennett, the 12th or whatever.
Yeah.
So I am going to bet one Sluggo buck on Alabama, Georgia.
The hammer's coming.
UGA minus 6.5. $1.
I think he's standing pat here. All right, my second game is Michigan, Iowa, minus 10.5. Locks said all he needed to say about it. I'm going Michigan here. I just think that they're going to completely destroy Iowa because Michigan's defense is really good and Iowa's offense is not very good. So I think this 10.5 is pretty good. I don't like the hook, but I'm going 3,000 Sluggo bucks on Michigan. 10.5.
3,000 Sluggo bucks, Michigan, 10.5. Locks, third and final pick.
Yeah.
No stress, Locks.
I woke up at like 2:30 this morning, and this one came to me. And then I woke up and I checked my phone, and it dropped a half a point. So I knew I was destiny. Utah, 2.5 points. Utah absolutely drubbed Oregon 3 weeks ago, I think. It was like the night game that everyone was excited over, and it was over by the middle of the first quarter. Why this is only 2.5? Does Oregon have a lot of momentum that I don't know about? Does someone on Utah's team break their leg? They have COVID? I don't know, but 10,000. Roll in, baby.
10.
Utah, my Utes.
Now, I looked at this number. I looked at it for multiple days, and it was -3. And I looked at one of those models that Beef was talking about earlier, and Oregon won the game. And I didn't understand it either. Where are they playing? Do you know? They're playing in Utah. Utah was listed in the spot for the home team, but I don't know what that means.
They play neutral.
It's neutral, but
Santa Clara or something probably.
I looked at like 2 others myself, Marty, and they both had a tight game, but Oregon, and I was like, but why? It doesn't make sense to me. So I just remember watching the little tiny bit I did of the Utah Oregon game, and they just look bigger. I know that they're supposed to. Oregon's usually faster than everybody, but man, Utah today look like some big old boys. So I like a 3-point win here. Give me. Let's go.
All right. Like I said, I thought it was a good bet. I was waiting for it to drop, but I didn't have the patience, and I picked another game.
It's in Vegas. It's at the Raiders Stadium in Vegas.
Well, some of those Utah guys are Mormons, so they're probably good. Maybe Oregon's going to party. Who knows? All right. My third and final bet, since I've got $1.02 outstanding right now, is Oklahoma State and Baylor. Oklahoma State minus 6.5. My big bet was going to be the over-under because earlier they played this year, and I think it was 24-14 or something. It was under the total for this game, so I thought, Then I thought about pick sixes and block punts and how horrible it is when you play the under. I meant under. I was going to go under. And it's this horrible way to watch a game, right? And then the final kicker was that this game is at noon. So I will know by noon. Casey's going to have the last bet. He could trump me here, but I'm going to know by noon. And, of course, that means you guys will make fun of me or I'll make fun of you two the rest of the day. But it's over early. The pain is over. It's not like Oklahoma where you wake up and look at your phone and you're wondering what's going on. And Oklahoma State minus 6.5. I just think they're better than Baylor, and Baylor has an injured quarterback against a really good defense, despite what Locks thought earlier. They had a bad game. They give up 30 points. Baylor hurt quarterback. Oklahoma State minus 6.5, 15,000 Sluggo Bucks.
There it is.
Your move, Mr. Beef.
I don't know what my math is.
One of you is sprinkled. One of you is all in.
My third and final pick is the ACC championship, and of course, my big bets that I go with, the flu always rears its ugly head. Kenny Pickett, ACC Player of the Year, Heisman front runner.
Are you serious?
Jordan Addison. Yeah, but they came up, Pittsburgh students, smart students came up with an algorithm that they're going to put at least 5,000 votes for Kenny Pickett every day, automated. So that's good. We got bots working for Pickett. Pitt is a 2-point favorite, or I locked it in at 2 over Wake Forest. And I don't see, I like Wake Forest a lot. I just don't see how they're going to hang with them. Jordan Addison, the wide receiver for Pitt, is absolutely dynamic. I do like A.T. Perry. I do like Sam Hartman, but I just think Pitt's going to win. And if they win close, it's going to be at least 3. So I'm going Pittsburgh minus 2 for 12,000 Sluggo Bucks, because I can't do math that quick.
I made him do it, Locks. I made him do it.
Oh, no, I had it written.
Oh, okay.
I had it written.
All right. Sounds good. Okay, let's do this.
But I wanted to go more, but I don't.
You didn't do
I don't know how much. I don't know how much I have left.
Come on, man.
You had like
14. I had 14 and change. 14, 17, 93 left is what I had.
Good deal, though. Here's the picks for the final week of the season. Final week of the picks. Pitt minus 2 for Beef. Excuse me. Pitt minus 2, 12,000. UGA Bama under 50.5 for 1,000. Michigan minus 10.5 for 3,000. Beef was the one with the big balls bets today. Locks, App State minus 3 for a penny. Michigan, Iowa over.
What's the juice even on that?
It's going to be interesting.
Over 43.5 for 6,807.59 Sluggo Bucks. I hope there's a snowstorm in that. Utah minus 2.5 for 10,000 bucks. Oh, well, there you go. Okay. And my bets, let's start off with the big one. Oak State Baylor under 46.5 for 2 cents. UGA minus 6.5 for $1. Oak State minus 6.5 for 15,000 Sluggo Bucks. I don't know. If I go 3-0, I think I might win. I'm only like $130 behind, but the chances of me going 3-0 aren't good. Whatever happens, fellas, it's been fun.
Absolutely.
This belt is on the line. I think we have a new format for next year. I think we just realized that next year there's going to be some bigger bets. We're not going to do this $200 and $300.
There was a lot of feeling out. Like halfway through the season, we started kind of getting a little more of a groove and getting more aggressive. It's been really fun. This format's been excellent, man. I've enjoyed it.
It's been a lot of fun because there's been, as Locks calls it after a few blue can strategy.
Strategery
involved, and it's just been a lot of fun. I'm really glad we did it. Who cares about the 1-loss record? We're up Bucks, all 3 of us. So that's a lot of fun. Wouldn't bet it on real Bucks, but who knows? Nope. No show next week. We're going to take the week off, and maybe we'll get together on the 22nd. Locks, before you got here, I read our preseason predictions off to Casey, and we were terrible. So maybe we can get you back on a couple of weeks to go over those for a few minutes. And so whoever's out there listening, no show next week. We plan to be back on the 15th. We'll see how that goes. Christmas time, who knows? Traveling, yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
Hey, you guys going to chop some beef tomorrow, Beef?
Yeah, we need to. We've been gone for 2 weeks. So it's just to get the boys to talk, even, get Locks uncensored. We need to.
Will happen.
Locks uncensored is a good thing. I mean, sometimes, but he usually has a totally different attitude on that show, and it's kind of fun to watch.
It's very different. I play a character there. Here, I'm kind of just me.
Kind of you. The character is. It looks like JJ repulses you sometimes, but that's part of the charm, right? A lot of fun.
It's a character.
It's a character. Over on Southern Reserve, John Chancey and I did our top 5. We have a little bit different order, same teams, big deal. Yeah. And last week I did a post on it can't get any worse. The Clemson fan who thinks 9-3 now, 9-3 is a horrible, horrible thing. And John Chansey has a story on what he learned about Clemson last week. And it was mostly good. That was pretty cool to read. And I told him, we were chatting over the week, and I was like, I'm glad you can think of something positive, because all I can think about is Clemson fans that think 8-3 at the time, now 9-3 is the worst thing in the history of the world. And if you were around, like when you guys were at school, what was your record? Would 9-3 be good? Would you take that?
Yeah, and we wouldn't go to the Peach Bowl for the 9th straight year.
Over and over.
Hey, I saw a Gator Bowl or two in my time. I know that. So,
we went to one Gator Bowl, three Peach Bowls, and one No Bowl when I was there.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, it has been really, really fun this year. It hasn't been the greatest year for Clemson, but as I said, the way the picks worked out was great. This belt will either be shipped to one of you, or it will stay right here in my hot little hands. And we'll know Saturday, right? Saturday, We'll have a final, and I will graciously turn it over to one of you two if you win. Good luck, guys. Both of you. Casey, close us up. Let's get out of here.
Hey, thanks so much to everyone in the Seldom News Reserve College Football Discussion Facebook group, especially Nelson Wilhite for all his help, John Chansey for his work on Seldom News Reserve, Uncle John McGee, everyone on Seldom News Reserve, Sluggo Podcast, and each and every one of you who listens, likes, shares, and participates. On behalf of Zach Lotz Parker, Marty Seldom News Reserve Coleman, I am Casey the Beef Creek, and thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you in 2 weeks right here on Sluggo, and congrats to Palk on his upcoming nuptials this weekend.
Congrats, Palk. Nice knowing you. Hey, ACC Network on Comcast 2 days after the football season ends.
Birtles!
Unlimited Spurtles.
I think we're done here.